World War II, a conflict that went on for over a decade, in a war that lasted 6 years, killing 60 million people and amongst them 6 million Jews. A ginormous bout that had countries participating from all around the world. Yet, there was a small silver lining, as 500,000 Jewish refugees survived the war, with my very own grandparents amongst them. This documentary will go over how the many Jews escaped the Nazis and lived to tell the tale. January 1933. Hitler is anointed Chancellor of Germany, thus giving the Nazi Party almost complete control over the government. The Nazi regime is then constantly showing its hatred towards Jews, with countless amounts of propaganda in hopes to destroy the Jewish reputation. They spew out anti-Semitism like a faucet and continue to undermine the Jewish race. September 1st, 1939. The first German shell of World War II is fired onto Warsaw, Poland, where Hitler chooses to begin his rampage. The 375,000 Polish Jews that reside there are prohibited to immigrate by the SS. They need to find another alternative to escape the swastika. And thankfully, the solution was found. Humanitarians. Yes, humanitarians. People that included Feng Shangho, a Chinese diplomat that saved 2,000 Jews during the early years of World War II by issuing visas to Shanghai out of goodwill. A fun fact, a museum to commemorate the Jewish refugees that were granted a safe pass to Shanghai was actually built and is now known as the Shanghai Jewish Refugee Museum. Chuin Sugihara, a Japanese diplomat who helped approximately 6,000 Jews escape Lithuania by issuing them visas to Japan. George Ferdinand Duckwitz, who risked his life and secretly ferried 6,000 Danish Jews to Sweden. Also, most notably, Raoul Wallenberg, a Swedish humanitarian who saved over 100,000 Jews from the Nazis by giving out fake passports. As well as Oskar Schindler, who saved over 1,200 Jews by employing them in his factory. His actions then went on to have a Golden Globe-winning movie in his name, Schindler's List. They all unconditionally helped Jews escape the jaws of the Axis from different corners of the globe. But how did they do this? Well, Hitler technically permitted Jewish immigration during the early years of the war, but there were still very few countries willing to accept the Jewish refugees. Therefore, in order to enter neutral countries, the Jews had to look toward a different option, and through underground tunnels, secret shelters, and fake visas/passports, many Jews and other refugees were able to be safely paraded to neutral countries. Here is my dad's account of how his Jewish mother escaped Austria. What was your account of how your mother escaped Austria?
Well, I'll give it to you as best I remember it. My mother left Austria as a teenager. She was living a sheltered life, just like kids nowadays are. And then all of a sudden, the war came and everybody's life was uprooted. In 1939, the handwriting was on the wall in Austria. It had been annexed by Germany, meaning the country was literally taken over by Hitler's forces. From what she told me, there was a family service agency run by Jewish people in London, and its job was to provide the means to bring the children of Jewish families under threat of war out of Austria. That required her to take a train to France, and then she would go from the port of Calais to the southern part of England, where a train was waiting to bring her to London. And she was foster parented in London.
But even before World War II, Jews sought to leave countries under Nazi control. Unfortunately, many countries, especially those in Europe, preferred to stay neutral against the German superpower and their leggings. Even many Americans far away from the Nazi threat, refused to allow even Jewish children onto their shores. Eleanor Roosevelt had other plans, however. I quote her, "A propaganda of fear directed against refugees from racial and political intolerance is being carried on in this country," she said, speaking to a crowd of 700 attendees in a conference regarding the refugee crisis. In conclusion, many of the actions derived from World War II have since been forgotten, but thanks to the thousands of humanitarians that tirelessly worked to secure people's freedom, more than 1 million refugees and soldiers were saved, who continue to carry the memories of the biggest war in the history of the world.